You know what? We talk about a lot of things here, grindhouse movies, wrestling, pot, whatever, different things. But, maybe I should start talking about life. Because obviously my life was interesting to some people. Living it, I never thought it was that interesting, but then again, you don't know the outside things because you're brought up a certain way in a certain environment, and that's what you know. You go outside of that environment, it's like a whole alien concept. But, I'm Italian American, a little bit of Irish thrown in, and, I was, I guess I'm a boomer, post-war, the Ozzie and Harriet deal, pop out 3 kids, they're smiling with the pipe in your fucking hand, and that's it. That was, Americana back in the 50s, and up until the turbulent 60s when things started to change. Well, of course, when things started to change, I started to change. I was exposed to a lot of things growing up that maybe I shouldn't have been exposed to. But that was the case because I was, in a relatively, suburban environment, up in Old West Orange, New Jersey, till my father bought a drugstore down in Lyndhurst, New Jersey, which was close to New York. And in doing that, I was exposed to a cast of characters, certain slice-of-life things, people that were involved in nefarious activities, and all of this was taken in stride as normal. But then again, what parent drags his, 13 or 12-year-old kid down to work with them and pays him 75 cents an hour to work in the store instead of letting them go out and play with other kids? But that's unfortunately what happened. So anyway, you were exposed to certain things like hot merchandise, bookies, the numbers racket, football tickets, and of course, drugs were coming in, so you would be exposed to them eventually. But, people say, well, you talk about a lot of these, people like, they were, criminals and things like that. Well, yes, a lot of them were. But I don't think anybody involved with nefarious activities or being involved in organized crime, the mob, whatever, will ever walk up to anybody and say that's my occupation, because nobody ever did. It was kind of easy to figure that shit out for yourself because all you had to do was just pay attention to what was going on. You see, like, a bag of, policy slips being changed hands. This older guy would come in once a week and, pick up papers and things like that. So, yeah, you were exposed to it. Plus, also when you're in the bar next door, there was the jukebox, which was the payola, because the bartender would have a bunch of quarters painted red, and he'd start the thing up, and that was to entice everybody else to feed quarters in, and that was, that was all run, by organized crime back then. Vending machines, that was a big thing. My dog's sitting here wanting her ass scratched because she's bored because it's too fucking cold to go out. But like I said, nobody ever walked up to me and told me they were involved in the mob or this or that or the other thing, but somebody did walk up to me once and tell me he was a bank robber. And I sort of laughed at this whole thing. Who the fuck would say something like that? But then I found out that he wasn't lying. And what happened was, I don't know the particulars about this, and I never did want to know the particulars about this, but I knew a guy named Gene who had a roommate named Tex. And I don't know what happened. I was working somewhere, and Gene comes in all upset, and he goes, I don't know what the fuck's going on. I just came home, and I found Tex, and he's like counting all this money dumped on the fucking bed, and it's all 5s and 10s. Well, what happened was, the guy who told me he was a bank robber, I'll just say his name was John. His name actually was John, but I'm not going to mention his last name because he's no longer with us, and neither is his partner, Albert. That they had robbed the bank, and Tex was part of it. And what I was told what happened was Tex had a dump truck with all this sand pushed in the back. Now, when these guys ran out of the bank with the money, they threw the money in the dump truck, and Tex just took off at a slow speed, built up speed, slammed on his brakes, and of course all the sand covered the money. So again, I don't know the particulars on this. All I know is, okay, if this actually happened, I'm going to make sure my ass is in that bar tonight because I know these fuckers are going to be buying. And of course they were buying. So, I'm playing dumb like I know nothing happened, and guys are buying rounds and shit. And what the fuck happened was, I don't know what possessed me to do this, but I made a dumb bet with somebody and drank basically a fucking water glass full of amaretto. So behind that bar was sort of like, I don't know, it could have been a parking lot, but it was just a big open fucking area with a bunch of garages and shit in there. So I don't know, somehow John, Tex, the rest of them, we're all shit-faced, we're outside. We might have got asked to leave for all I know. I don't remember back that far. But all I know is I'm bent over the bumper of a car puking my fucking brains out because water glass amaretto might go down nice and smooth. When it mixes with everything else you had during that evening, ugh. So there was these patio blocks laying around. They were about this big. The things they put on the patio, and they're pretty easy to break. So I don't know what started this, but John picked one up, threw it up, and it hit him in the head and broke over his head. So he thought this was fucking hysterical. So he picks up another one, tosses it up, and bang, breaks that over his head. Well, 3 times the fucking charm, I guess, because he picked up a third one, threw it up a tad higher than he did, but this came down at a point, hit him right in the head, bang. Blood is pouring out of his fucking head. He split his fucking head open, and we're like, oh shit. So we get him in a car, we're trying to drive him to the emergency room. We stop at a light. He runs out and runs into a liquor store, buys a pint of vodka, and he's standing on the court pouring the fucking vodka in the open, kind of like, Jesus Christ, get him in the fucking car. Now, I'm fucking queasy as is because I was fucking puking and shit. So we finally get him to the ER and he gets him stitched up and shit. But yeah, it was after that night, there was no fucking doubt in my mind that was his chosen profession. And I don't know what happened to these guys, because guys in that area came and went all the time. I got another story, but I'm trying to dig up pictures of it because Joe Pesci and Frank Vincent, before they were stars, basically were a nightclub act in that area. They used to perform at a place called, I believe it was called the Point After, up in Edgewater, New Jersey. And before Pesci was big, he was buddies with all these guys around my area, and I changed the oil in his car, not knowing who the hell he was. But there was this movie, and I'm not going to mention the name because I'm fucking tearing this place apart trying to find it, where it was an early appearance by him, an early appearance by Frank Vincent, and something happened in the movie that happened in real life. But like I said, I got to find this fucking movie. And when you look, this office and stuff like that, there's crap all over the place. But if you want to hear any more of these slice of life stories that I went through, because I ran into some fucking really strange people, people that, in a perfect world, the average guy wouldn't rub shoulders with, but because of the area I was living in, and basically, there was a lot of, people there that, did nefarious shit. So if you want to hear stories like that, fine. I got a bunch of those. Crazy shit. And, like I said, it even got a little bit more intense when I started, being in New York all the time, because you definitely trip over guys back then. You didn't know who they were, but then you'd find out later who they were. So, yeah, got a bunch of that shit going on. But, yeah, again, I'm doing a double. It's February 8th. I'll say the date again. There's no rush getting this up. Again, thank you for subscribing. Thank you for tuning in. And if you need anything from me, feel free to email me at GrindhousePurgatory@gmail.com. And if you need anything, DVD-wise, book-wise, magazine-wise, I can take care of you. So until then, mask up, stay safe. We'll see you on the flip side.